Okay, today we're going to solve absolute value equations. In order to solve an absolute value equation, you have to make sure first the absolute value is by itself. So let's look at, say, number 3. Number 3, the absolute value is by itself. So once it's by itself, you can separate it into two different problems to get rid of that absolute value. One that looks exactly the same, and one where what's inside the absolute value stays the same, but you have to negate the other side. Now when I solve for A, I would add 6, so you get A equals 15. On the other side, we'll add 6, and we get A equals -3, and those are my two answers there. Now there's a second slide to this for what's considered your second page. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, but I'm going to flip to it now. You may have to start another video. But let's go to the next page here. Okay, on this page, let's skip to number 15. It's ones that are a little more difficult for us. On 15, I have to get that absolute value by itself first. So I'm going to subtract the 10. So you'll have -10, absolute value, -8k plus 4, close absolute value, equals 0. Now still to get that absolute value by itself, I gotta divide by -10. So I'll get absolute value of -8k plus 4, still equals 0. Now that the absolute value is by itself, I separate it into two problems. One that looks exactly the same. So -8k plus 4 equals 0. And the other one I would make would be, you keep the absolute value the same. And what I said before was you negate the other side. But when you negate 0, you just get 0. So in this case, when your absolute value equals 0, you only have one equation that you have to solve for. So solving for k, in this case, I'm going to subtract the 4. And then I'm going to divide by -8. So I'll get k equals -1/2. Let's look at two more examples here. Now I'm going to move up. Let's look at number 11. Alright, to solve 11, the first thing we have to do is subtract a 7. So we'll have 3 absolute value of x over 9 equals 1. Divide by 3. Absolute value of x over 9 equals 1/3. Now, if the absolute value is by itself, you separate it into two problems. One that looks exactly the same, so x over 9 equals 1/3. And the other one, absolute value piece stays the same, but negate the other side, so -1/3. To solve for x here on the left, let's cross multiply. So we get 3x equals 9. Divide by 3, x equals 3. Cross multiply on the right hand side, 3x equals -9. Divide by 3, x equals -3. So 3 and -3 are your answers for number 11. And finally, please jump back up to number 9. When I go to solve number 9, I'm going to subtract the 4. Then you get the absolute value of -5x equals -15. In this case, there is no solution. Now, the reason there is no solution is because you have an absolute value equaling a negative number. An absolute value is always positive, so it'll never equal a negative number. Therefore, if you get an absolute value by itself and it's set equal to a negative number, you're just going to jump right to no solution. So please make sure you look for that as you do some of these problems later. Okay, at this point, we will finish the rest of the problems in class tomorrow.